to forget this life, but darkness is not your dream. A soul strong as steel. So just one more time, if you dare, leave while you're alive, and never give in to the fight. Step into the fire. That feeling of what is life, burns right through the darkest spell, and helps you to hear the sound that thoughts in your heart. So just one more time, if you dare, leave while you're alive, and never give in to the fight. Step into the fire. So just one more time, if you dare, live while you're
Carl here from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial for short, and I am here with Aonia, and it's a pleasure to have you all here. This is, of course, Desert Island Dregs, and normally the format for this is 3 things per category, e.g. games or books, depending upon your taste, horror movies, because that is the only area we deal in, and of course, music, rock, punk, metal, whatever your genre is, you get to choose 3 of each item. Now, normally we would not have as many people, so it'll be 3 for each person. There are so many members of you. We're going to stick to just 1 each. Oh, we'll be here for hours, particularly as I also want to talk and ask you questions in and around the band, the new release, and the future, and so on and so forth. We do have a little bit of limit on time in regards to Tim, so we are actually going to focus on you specifically to begin with, so you can disappear and do what you need to do. First things first, Tim, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I wanted to check in with you. Being in the UK, sharing the same situation that it has been for the last year and a bit. How have you been coping? How have you been holding up in the COVID era and these difficult times?
I haven't stopped working, so pretty much I've stayed working throughout. Everybody else seems to have had been furloughed and had a bit of time off and things like that, but I've just kept on working, so I haven't stopped at all.
Okay, are you okay to share what you do?
Oh yeah, no, I don't mind. So oddly enough, I have my own estate agency business, but we do a lot of rental properties, and so you've got to stay open. You've got to be able to deal with tenants and deal with problems.
Oh, wow. Okay. So work just kept as busy as it always was.
Yes, yes. I made the mistake of furloughing my staff, thinking I could save some money whilst they were on furlough. And of course, what happened is I had to do their work as well. So I love my staff. I found out at last what they do for a living, and they are wonderful, brilliant, brilliant people. And I will never, ever do that again.
That's fair. That's fair. What during this period as well then, positive wise, because obviously you've been limited to what you can do, both musically and personally. Are there any positives you've been able to take out of this period, things that have kind of benefited you?
The most positive thing is I have regressed my teenage years. In my teenage years, I did not want to play covers. I did not want to do anything except for write my own music. And I have come to realize that the only band that's at all interesting to me is Aonia. I don't give a damn about the other bands which I play in. They're fun. They earn me a bit of money. But at the end of the day, Aonia is the one I love. And writing songs is what I love to do.
What reinvigorated a passion, or it just focused your mind?
Focused my mind. And then the rehearsal we had last week totally reinvigorated my passion in it. It's just something which we have to do. We have to write, we have to play. And we have to get out there and gig again as well. And I've got to be honest, I've played in so many bands for such a long time that having a year and a half or a year off not playing gigs has not been that bad. It's actually been quite, but the rehearsal we had last week just blew my mind. It was phenomenal to see the guys again, to play our music again, and to know that we're going to get out there and play this in front of other people. I can't wait. I'd do it tomorrow.
That's interesting. Do you think then, like, obviously when you could gig and play whenever you effectively wanted to, do you think you maybe took it for granted to a certain degree?
I've never taken Aonia gigs for granted because there's a lot to do there. And it's not the same when you're playing music and when you're playing covers and you're playing in a cabaret band. You aren't the main attraction. The main attraction is what they've gone to do, and then you're just in the background. Sometimes they might have come to see you, but when you do an Aonia gig, the fans are there. The fans have come to see Aonia because they love Aonia. You've got to give them that show. But from my point of view, I'm playing songs which I've written and these people know, and it means so much more.
Have you been able to make your peace up to this point with the fact that you have had no choice but not be able to gig, not be able to play live, and put so many things for the band on hold because of it?
Yeah, that's why they have boxed sets on all these Netflix and everything else.
Fair enough. Okay, so we're going to dive into the categories then. One choice each. We will start with the video games and the book side of things. Now, do you have a preference? Is there something you enjoy playing games? Do you enjoy reading?
I'm probably the one.
I like games.
Sorry, Tim, go on.
I like games. Yeah, no, I like games, but it's got to be a book. I prefer reading. I always have a book. And the book to go back to, which I have read practically every year since I was about, is Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay. Is there a specific one of the trilogy, or just the entire 3 books?
Oh, goodness me. I read it like a thesis now. I've got all of the extra books and that adds on, so that I read Lord of the Rings and then I'll go and open up the history of Middle Earth and I'll open up something else and I'll read all the extra bits and then I'll go back to reading Lord of the Rings. It really is just absorbing, totally mind-bending. I remember when I was young, at home, there was a radio production of Lord of the Rings, and we used to listen to it every Sunday without fail. And I fell in love with the book. We have read The Hobbit at school, and I was into Dungeons, and I read Lord of the Rings, and I just reread it. I love the book. I know it backwards.
Okay. How do you feel then a lot about like the collected media? I'm not just talking about obviously the adaptions, the films and The Hobbit and so on, but even the animated movie that was made, I think, in the 80s, or perhaps musics that themed around it, Blind Guardian style stuff. Is that extra stuff you enjoy?
I'm always keen to listen to new stuff. There's a guy who plays guitar, and I can't remember his name now. I've just bought some CDs of his because it's all supposed to be Tolkien based. Brilliant guitarist. The only downside is it's all instrumental, and I'd like to hear some words. I'd like to hear somebody put it to proper rock music. I also tend to find a lot of Tolkien-based rock music always tends towards folk music, which is okay, but it's not really putting it into your own genre. It's also better and writing music about that rather than putting it into your own words. Having said that, the books are number one. The radio play worked okay. The films are okay up to a point, but they don't stick to the books close enough. And Ralph Bakshi, God bless his cotton socks. If he'd made the second film, perhaps it would have been okay. But the first one is fine, but nothing great. The books, it's got to be the books.
Do you think they'll ever try to adapt it again?
Only when I've made my billions, and then I can do it myself. It needs to be done. It needs to be done as a TV series. It can't be done as a film. It's got to be done as a TV series and done properly.
Talking of which, Dan, what's your interest
I've thought
in
about this long and hard.
Yeah, this Amazon, is it Amazon or Netflix series that's coming up in the future? What's your thoughts on that? Is that something you're interested in?
Yes, I will watch it, but that's more down the Silmarillion approach, I believe, than Lord of the Rings. I think they're going back into the history of Morgoth and all the other. Oh God, I sound like a nerd there. I shall watch it. I will always watch everything to do with Lord of the Rings, because you can't have an opinion without actually watching it and formulating one. It will involve having to read Silmarillion again, which is a very hard book to read, but I do read it. Not as frequently as Lord of the Rings, but I do read that book. But I don't know. It might work. It might not work. That's not as important. There was important bits of Lord of the Rings missed out, which meant a lot. Whereas Silmarillion, it's all history.
Okay. Then, I mean, although it's not Lord of the Rings specific, but The Hobbit, the adaptation of that, the films specifically, I'd love to know, did you find any enjoyment into that story being stretched into 3 films?
Yes, I love the films. I think The Hobbit, the issue I have is Lord of the Rings ends incorrectly as far as I'm concerned. So I could love watching The Hobbit and then watching Lord of the Rings, and we have the scouring of the Shire, and it would be perfect. Without that, yeah, The Hobbit is brilliant. I've no issues with adding all the extra subplots and sub-themes in The Hobbit. And it does plan fairly well. The Hobbit works as a film better than Lord of the Rings works as a film, because it's kind of more accurate to the book. But it's just because Lord of the Rings follows the Hobbit, so you're going to have a night of watching all the films one after another, and you know when you get to the end of Lord of the Rings, the ending is going to be wrong. Or it's going to miss out a huge chunk of something that Tolkien himself said was a vital part of the Lord of the Rings.
It's always interesting when you talk to someone who loves the fantasy world it created, he created in the wider scope of it all, compared to, say, someone like me who has read the books a long time ago, but mainly just goes, oh yeah, they're a good set of films. I can sit back and enjoy them. And it's obviously 2 very opposing differences.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. So stick with movies then. Let's jump straight into your horror movie choice then. What do you got?
That is an American Werewolf in London.
Oh wow, okay. Explain that one then. What's the love in that?
The love in that is because, I mean, the thing about horror movies is there's so many different types of horror movies, and there's lots of horror movies I'll watch again, and there's lots of horror movies that scare you, and there's the, you know, there's Driller Killer, and there's the others, and there's things which are just films which grab you for different reasons. American Werewolf in London, I just remember that film because one, it was seminal in the way that they did the special effects in creating that. And I've watched it recently, and it is still very well done when they have the changeover. I love the soundtrack. I love the tongue-in-cheek of the film itself. And it's not a serious film. You don't have to take it seriously, but there are scary parts in the film as well. And it's a wonderfully constructed film. I think the films that came after it, much the same as a lot of sequels, are very poor films. And it's got Jenny Agutter in it, and she's gorgeous.
I was going to ask what you thought of the sequel, American Werewolf in Paris, but you've already suggested you don't like it.
It's not wonderful, but sequels tend not to be. The Godfather is, yes, but apart from that, yes, most sequels tend to go downhill after that. We were just talking about Alien earlier on, how that's a fantastic film, and it is a great film, and then it just tends to go downhill. It will do. It's the same theory. It's the same theme, but just made worse. But American Werewolf in London was a wonderfully made film and original. Very original.
Absolutely. Even though obviously themed around werewolves, which aren't, I mean, there are many werewolf horror movies out there, but they're not kind of the go-to horror movie villain. Do you have any interest in werewolf horror overall?
Not particularly, no. I've tried to watch, what were the ones which came out with, what's that matey out of Harry Potter? Twilight, yes. Yeah, I was trying to watch Twilight, and it just bored me so stiff. And
no Blade or Wesley Snipes then, or Underworld.
Vampire.
Well, yeah, Underworld then.
Underworld. Yeah, I've never seen it.
Oh, you should do. For one,
okay, fair enough. Yes, there's lots
Kate Beckinsale
of films people tell me I should see.
Do you keep up to date with horror? Do you watch a lot of modern stuff, or do you kind of find yourself focusing on your classics?
I tend to focus on what's ever on Horror Channel at the time, and so they tend to repeat lots of films. And so I'll start watching Horror Channel late at night, thinking I should go to bed, and I'll just keep watching the film. It's not a good way of sleeping.
No, fair enough. I'm sure the Horror Channel regularly shows things like The Howling. So yeah, you'll have to check that out if you've not seen The Howling. That's an 80s one.
No, I've seen The Howling a long time ago. I seem to recall that it wasn't as tongue-in-cheek as American Werewolf in London was. And that's one of the aspects I like about the film, is it is quite a tongue-in-cheek film. It does make fun of itself, as well as being a very effective and very well done horror film.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great encapsulation of horror comedy, the combination of two working perfectly. Yeah. And it's strange these days because people tend to think, oh, what's the best horror comedy? And they go to something like Shaun of the Dead. Would you agree with that sort of statement, or would you go, no, American Werewolf is still probably the best horror comedy?
No, now then. Shaun of the Dead is nice. Okay, I'd still go American Werewolf, because Shaun of the Dead is really a parody of zombie films, whereas American Werewolf was an original film. It's not a parody of anything else. It is a film which was based on an original idea, as much as being a werewolf can be an original idea.
No, completely fair, completely fair. Right, your last one then, it is a music one, and you somehow have to choose one record to take on this.
Can I just pop in and say, guess what I picked as my horror film?
Oh, really?
Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, okay, all right. We'll
trounced all over that, guys.
So yeah,
sorry,
Tim,
I'll let Tim finish his music thing.
I'll be back again. Sorry, you seized up all my idea. I'm sorry about this connection. It's best I can do, unfortunately. But
no, Warren was done with you anyway. And you can get out of your room. The music, the record choice. Then you've got one record to choose from. What is no doubt very, very difficult choice. What would you take?
Gonna have to be some Bach.
Really? Classical?
Yeah. And it's going to be Huda Menuhin playing the double violin concerto in D minor.
Okay. Describe then, like, so you listen to something like that. What's the kind of feelings you get when you listen to it? Is it a form of relaxation, or is it something that kind of pumps you up, makes you feel good?
No, it's absolutely relaxation. It's something that you let flow over you, and you can let all the worries of the day go behind you, and you listen to the interplay and the contrapuntal music, and you say to yourself, one, I'll never write anything as good as this. But no, you'll listen and just everything flows away. It's a perfect piece of music.
Has classical music in general then been a hefty influence on your musical career today?
Yes, very much so. I was classically trained on the piano. I have always listened. I mean, I listen to all music. There's no genre of music that I won't listen to. But if I'm at home and I want to listen to something, whether it's cooking or whether it's just to listen to something itself, it will tend to be Bach.
Oh, that's incredible. It's the first time anyone's brought out a classical composer in this series to date.
Get ready.
Okay.
Fantastic. Right, Tim, before you go then, I want to talk about the future then, and specifically from you and your perspective as to where Aonia might be going over the next year and how you feel about the potential of being able to get out there and perform again come June 21st afterwards, fingers crossed. How are you feeling about it in general?
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. We played music on some last Saturday, was it? Saturday. And it sounded great. And it reminded me, if I needed reminding, but it reminded me of what it's like to play your own music. We have such good songs in the pipeline, but we've got an album that was released 3 years ago, and we've wasted a year and a half of not being able to promote it. We have songs off that which are great songs, and we have brilliant songs which we're writing. I just can't wait to get out there and play to the people and let them hear it. That's what they need to do.
Do you kind of feel like your momentum was halted a little bit? As you say, you had the album out and you're touring and you're doing your shows and you're doing your fests, and then bang, stop dead. Yeah,
totally. All momentum's gone from the music. And it's getting out there and getting these venues open again and getting out there and playing live music again, getting the buzz, getting the crowd in front of you.
Are you concerned or are you confident that when music properly does open again and e.g. with no restrictions and so on, that crowds are going to come back? Or do you think there might be a little bit of fear, a bit of trepidation?
Crowds will be there. I have no doubt at all. The people want to get out. The people want to see live music. They want to hear these bands. Spotify is okay. Listen.
I think the dog just killed the connection again.
You've got to be out there playing, and they will come out and listen.
Yeah, no, I can't wait myself, man. I really can't wait. Tim, really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Go and enjoy yourself.
Great. Will do. I shall have some dinner.
Okay, guys. So now the format's going to become a bit more straightforward in that we're going to go around the room, as it were, from my perspective. So I will prompt you beforehand. And a lot of the questions you'll have heard me ask Tim, you're going to get pretty much the same in regards to why and whys about your particular tastes and choices and things like that. So wow me, basically. You will not believe how many times I've heard the word alien or Halloween on these horror movie choices. So if you've got a rare one out there, I'd be fascinated to know. So first things first, guys, let's talk about the year as it's been and your personal experiences, how you've been coping, how you've been handling, not just professionally in the band, but how you've been handling life in general in the UK during this period. We'll start with you, Mel.
I'm in quite a lucky position in that I don't have any children to worry about. Mm-hmm. And I quite like the person who I've been locked down with, so that's always good. Back last May, also, a stray cat moved into my house, and she came with bonus cats because she was pregnant. So they've literally just turned a year old yesterday, the kittens. So that gave us something to kind of focus our energy on for a couple of months, that looking after the cat and making sure that the kittens were okay and finding them good homes and the like. Obviously I'm a teacher, so I've been teaching either via this or in person, so I've been working all the way through. It's been exhausting, I'm not going to lie. And obviously I miss my friends and I miss being able to sing. It's the first time since I was about 6 years old, I think I've gone an entire year without performing. So
Wow.
It's been a bit bizarre, but I'm not in a terrible situation, and I understand that obviously it had to be done, didn't it? So we can protect people and make sure they're all okay. So bit of a mixed experience, but overall quite positive actually.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask then about the positives that you've been able to take out of this period. Is there anything specific that you personally have been able to enjoy to a degree?
My cats. Sounds silly. No, my cats, we redid the garden. We've it's been nice as well. I've had a bit of time to kind of sit and read and reflect. And we started doing some work on album 2, so it gave me a bit of time to start working on some lyrics and bits for album number 2. And when we decided to release the AA side single as well, that was really good because it kind of gave me something to focus on and work toward, with doing the recording and for that. So
yeah,
I don't know if you guys felt the same.
Definitely.
Imagine the release of the AA side single as well kind of gave an opportunity to almost remind the world that you still existed, right? Because, the modern world of music is you go a week without posting something and you are forgotten about.
Yeah, we'd been trying to kind of do the whole remaining relevant on social media thing. So we did I did a live where we did an Ask Aonia anything, and people did it on Facebook Live and people could pop in and stuff. And it was going really well, and it was really lovely for about 45 minutes or so. And then these people came into the comments and they started asking, they were like, I'm here about the couch. You said there was a couch for sale. And I got really annoyed. I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. And my husband's walking behind the laptop, and he's going, put a shoe on your head. And I was like, what? And he goes, no, put a shoe on your head. And he went and he got me a shoe. And I was like, I'm not putting a shoe on my head. What are you on? And it turns out that apparently there's a group of people on Facebook, back during this lockdown was when it was kind of first starting, that they would go and they would find live videos and they would type in the chat just rubbish about couches for sale until somebody put a shoe on their head. Then they take a screenshot and they go bother somebody else. But I didn't know about this. I know, right? People have got nothing better to do, but I suppose they literally didn't because it was lockdown, right? And my husband, being from the internet, knew about this, so he's trying to get me to put a shoe on my head. I'm like, I'm not putting your shoe on my head. That's gross. What are you doing? And it was only when I went, okay, guys, I'm sorry. It looks like it's just gone derailed. I'll see you later. And I ended the live chat that he was like, look, and he brought up something on Slashdot about it, and I was like, oh, wonderful. Never mind. And then we started doing so we did some bits. So we had Merch Mondays, we'd have different deals on, and Words Wednesdays where we gave a little bit of the story behind the lyrics, and that went quite well for a while, but then you run out of songs to talk about because it dragged on and on. So it was nice to be able to have something to post about that wasn't just apparently today is National Smile Day, here's a picture of us smiling.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean, because as weeks go by and you can only do so much, and everyone is trying to do exactly the same thing, trying to make their way on the internet, trying to stay as relevant as possible. We'll get into live streaming in a bit. Joe, let's jump to you then. How have you been doing during this period?
Yeah, similar to Mel. Very grateful to not have children. People I know who've got children have, really had it hard. Very grateful that I've had a job. I've pretty much worked through the whole thing. I work in a hospitality environment, running weddings, events, and hospitality outlets, essentially on a park. Obviously, we've had no weddings and events, but there's the whole administration side of it that's moving dates and reorganizing hundreds of couples. It was a pretty rough time, and And then there was the, you know, kind of just chipping in and doing everything you can to help the hospitality side of the business, from cooking pizzas, the sausage rolls, to car parking, you know. But just very grateful to have been able to have kept a job and you know, and not being affected directly by the pandemic. So so very grateful for that. My sister had a baby, so that was lovely, and that was all went well. So yeah, very grateful. But it's hard. It's I think I'm one to kind of just brush off and say, yeah, everything's fine, yeah, doing really well. But I think it wasn't until the morning before our first rehearsal with the band, I had a bit of a breakdown, because I was kind of like, I'm going to see everyone again. So I had this moment where I just burst into tears, and I'd put you know, the band on, and I just had this moment where I was just like, oh my God, I'm gonna see everyone again. And you know, and they're such great people. It just took me by surprise that I was just so overwhelmed that I'm just going to see these people again that I'd seen every week, you know, every week or fortnight, you know, for the last however long. And it was just, yeah. So then you kind of realize, actually, yeah, I feel this has probably hit me worse than I'm willing to admit. So yeah.
So it just took that little trigger. Were you, I have to ask, even though, you know, you're great friends, these are your family, and you no doubt spoke regularly during the pandemic, the lockdowns and so on, did you find you were nervous the morning of the rehearsal? Nervous to see?
Yeah, absolutely. We were auditioning a drummer, and I was like, he's going to know the songs better than me.
You were auditioning a drummer, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, it's not so much nervousness, just the fact that, you know, you've not seen each other for a while, and it's the uncertainty that the last year has brought to the surface for everybody, I think. So I knew as soon as I saw Mel and everybody, it would just be we'd be straight back to normal, because you know, there's such a lovely bunch of people. It's, you know, we knew it would be, but I think there's that uncertainty as to, can I hug somebody? How are they going to react? You know, if I'm going to go in for a full-on hug and they're going to be like, no, I'm being really sensible. You know, it's that kind of thing, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I remember going back to the very start, early stages of the pandemic. So the first month or two, when places was in lockdown, but I was still at work, of course. And I had a new boss, new manager turned up, and I put my hand out to shake her hand. She shook it, and instantly through from my head went, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't right. And all that sort of feelings that come with that. It's been so weird. Now I think we're kind of used to it, that coming out of that aspect is a little strange. And I wanted to ask about the nerves, really, because one of the, not overlooked because it's constantly talked about to a certain degree, obviously, is the mental health issues that come with coming out of lockdowns and stuff like that. And the idea that you might be very nervous about going out and going back to what might be perceived as normal life. And it's really, yeah, just try and gauge your perspectives on that, as well as each individually, how you're coping with that part, coming back to what is supposed to be normal.
Yeah, I think it's everyone's going to take it differently, I think, because I've worked within hospitality. You know, I've kind of seen the levels of stupidity that are out there firsthand, and you get to a point where I think you just have to say, this is the rule, these are the rules, you just need to stick to them. If they're in force, you stick to them, and that's how life has to be until they get changed. And I think you just have to follow those rules and just deal with it as it is on that day. This moment is not going to be forever. I think you just have to make your peace with it, and get on with it. And I think in terms of a mental health point of it, it's, you know, working all day in a mask is horrific, absolutely horrific. But you know, I'm not saving lives. I'm dealing with couples who want to get married and serving pizzas, you know. And I just think if the NHS nurses and that can you know, just get on with it and cope with it, then for me I just have to compare myself to that person who's there for 14 hours in a hospital saving somebody's life. And I just think, you know what, just get on with it, because it's for the greater good. And you know, it's not just about you, it's about everybody. So that's my point on it. And you know, if other people are you know, not wanting to follow rules or whatever, that's up to them. I won't be in that crowd. I'll be doing what is right for everybody. So
that's it. Yeah, absolutely. No better words than that. What about the most positive thing you've been able to take out of this period then, personally?
I think my sister having a baby actually is, and I've moved house as well. We bought a house,
wow.
so, and I have my studio. Woo-hoo-hoo. That was part of the bargain, was to have my own room so I could have my little studio. But yeah, my sister, she was due in April, so the country obviously locked down, and she was there alone. She gave birth alone. No one could go in because she has another daughter. So her partner couldn't be there with, obviously, because they couldn't take the other little one. So she was there alone. So I was just worried about her, and his dad couldn't drive. My mum doesn't have a car, so I was the kind of driver. So I was kind of there to pick her up, take her and pick her up. So, but just, yeah, very grateful that all went well, and yeah, healthy baby came out of it. So
what more can you ask for? That's
absolutely
exactly what we want.
Yeah.
Andy, it's your turn. How have you been holding up the last year and a bit, my man?
Oh, I've been exactly the same as all of us. I think we've all worked through. So no rest for the wicked. So I was very wicked. Yeah, it's been an entertaining. What was it now? About 18 months. It feels like. I don't think it feels like 12 months.
Yeah.
It's a lot longer.
That 18 years, mate.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I can tell how grey I've gone in the last 18 years. Yeah, work and work. I'm an essential worker myself, so didn't get any breaks. So it's just been a full-on 18 months, shall we say. Positives and things to come out of it. You've just seen one of the positives that came out was that little fluffy object that was brutally thrust into my face.
The dog, yeah.
In the same way that Mel had a nice litter of kittens, I've had a nice litter of puppies. And that was the last puppy that's due to go tomorrow. She's on her way to a new home, and we've made 5 families very, very happy, and a lot of young children very, very happy, which is lovely. Anything else great coming out of it? I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you. It's been an interesting time. I think the same with the other guys coming back last week into a rehearsal room were slightly trepidatious in some ways, but to actually walk in there and go, I'm so comfortable. I'm so back at home. It's not just the building. Oh no, it's these people that make me feel this way. Not knowing, so suddenly going, hang on, I've got to play songs that I haven't played for a long time. Yeah. And to suddenly, for us to look at each other and go, yeah, we can do this. Oh, we are doing it. Oh, damn, this sounds good. Damn, this feels good. And it's been a great week since then. It's like right, let's get playing. Let's get buy some new toys, because that's sort of been on hold since we've not been gigging. So there's no new real amps and new bits and pieces and that. But now there is. It's like, what can I buy now to have a bit of fun with? And that's been, I suppose, my run through of the last 18 months. Unless you can remind me of something I didn't answer.
Sorry, say that again?
Unless you can remind me of one of the questions I didn't answer.
Oh, no, it was great. You're trying to sum up 18 months in a matter of a minute. I'm sure there's plenty of things you've glossed over personally in that. When you say you worked throughout it, what with that focus on your job, would you say that was the thing during this period that kind of kept you, I won't say going, because that sounds like everything else was negative in your life or something like that, but would you say it was what kind of kept you energized, as it were?
Oh, yeah, strangely enough, my job is I'm a refrigeration and air conditioning engineer. I spent quite a lot of time in mortuaries.
Oh wow!
As in next 4 days, I will be spending my time in mortuaries repairing refrigeration units that keep those loved ones that have passed as they need to be kept. So it's been a bit of a challenging time, to say the least. It's not an easy thing to deal with.
No, of course.
So whilst a lot of my time is also spent strangely enough in supermarkets, which again is the highest risk, or was the highest risk for actually catching COVID throughout the whole pandemic, or one of the highest places. It's been an interesting time dealing with customers, with clients, with the people we support, and all the other bits of it, and watching how people have actually reacted to the pandemic. And I think we've seen the best of people and the not so best, for want of not saying not the worst of people, because it's certainly not the worst of people, but their reaction to certain things is very strange when faced with adversity. So has my work seen me through it? It's kept me busy. It's kept me paying my bills, which is always nice. I can't say any more than that. It's been a nice, steady job.
Yeah, that's incredible. I find it amazing, and the sort of the mortuary aspect and things like that. It's not I've never met anyone that's done that kind of work before, so that's incredible, and certainly gives you a different perspective on these entire events.
The interesting thing, before in a previous lifetime, I was actually a registrar of deaths and marriages, which is professional hatch, match, and dispatch. So I've definitely seen it from both sides, or all angles. Oh, hang on. So I've been married before, so you've seen that. I've been born, I've seen that. I've got one more thing to do personally. I'll wait for a bit longer.
Absolutely amazing. All right, Stu, the newbie, but not the newbie, so to speak. Congratulations on obviously full-time joining Aonia. It's a pleasure to speak to you. How have you been holding up during this period?
Yeah, not bad. I think for us personally, it was probably quite a nice step back and relax for a while. For me, I was gigging every single weekend nearly before that, and I think you sort of forget what it's like to have a little bit of spare time. So then when you've suddenly bang, everything has stopped, it's nice to just sit back and relax a little bit. So no, it's been fine for us. We've been working from home just pretty much from the beginning. So that's been a bit of a lifestyle change instead of driving into an office every single day. And then, I think on the whole, we've just tried to sit back and just enjoy it as much as we can. It's nice to start getting back to some level of normality of just having the option of doing stuff. But I think I've definitely sort of, some people have obviously had it much worse than we have, and I think we've managed to just sort of trundle along as such.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That going back to what you said at the start there. So you were gigging every weekend, and then it stopped. That initial stop and not having anything for a certain period of time, was that a particularly rough period? And it's only in hindsight that you're able to kind of go, okay, I'm glad now that I had that time, that calm down time.
It's a funny one, because I think we were sort of expecting it for a few weeks before, and I was in a tribute band at the time, and we had a gig in Dover. It was the last gig we had, and I remember that getting there and it feeling like the one gig too many from a social distancing thing. It felt weird, and I remember that being the one where I was sort of thinking, I think this is it for a bit. Obviously, it was a lot longer than I was expecting that it would stop for. But no, I don't think it was. I think probably we were ready for a break a little bit. But I think because we'd sort of expected it for, coming up to it, it was nearly like every gig was feeling like, do you think this might be the last one? Oh no, we've got the other one still going. And then I remember that last gig, it just felt, it had an odd feeling about it. For me personally, anyway. I don't know if everyone else felt the same. But I remember just feeling that one was that one too many sort of thing. And then that was that. But no, it was pretty strange, I think, more than anything at first. And then it was nice to have my schedule to open up a little bit, but then obviously we couldn't do anything anyway, so it didn't make a difference. No, I think like I said, I think it was quite a strange feeling at first, but I've certainly at first anyway, I enjoyed the novelty of having free weekends for a change.
Yeah. I mean, it's always good that there's a positive you can take out of it, that sort of level of freedom that you get from that, even if it was too long in the end. I have to ask you, one of the things you hear a lot when it comes to people who obviously went to an office once and now have to work from home is that work life starts to impose upon their home life, and that whereas before you might have been doing a 9 to 5, been able to walk out and leave it, you start to find it encroached more in your home life. How have you been able to keep that balance?
It was difficult at first. I think for the first few weeks, it was difficult to, switch the computer off and step away from it and not be, especially with the work computer being next to my, my studio computer and my gaming thing and, everything in the same room. It was too easy to sort of turn and look at the other. But I think it was just getting into the mindset of it and just, on a Friday night, I still religiously, I'll pack all the gear away and put it all in a box. So it's not just there, and sort of like mentally switch off from it. So I think at first it was difficult, but in the end, I think, it's a lifestyle that I've personally enjoyed. I know there's a lot of people that have struggled with it. And again, I think we've been quite fortunate. Well, me and my partner are both in the same situation, both working from home, and we've had, that company with each other to sort of keep yourself going a little bit. People living on their own and stuff, I can completely understand how it'd be a really difficult, change not having, because some people use the workplace as their social, for their place socializing. So for us, I think we've been quite fortunate with the way that it's been all right for the vast majority of the time. You get little ups and downs and stuff like that with it, and certainly at first, like I said, it was quite difficult. I think you enjoyed the novelty of it for a bit, and then it was, you were catching yourself checking work at 8 o'clock at night and going, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But now, I think now, if anything, I feel like it'd be more of a struggle to go back into an office. I feel like there should be a grace period of going back into the office where I'm allowed to wear slippers for a few weeks and, keep my pajamas on for another month or so before I have to start dressing like a real person again.
The office wear, the office uniform.
Yeah.
So I want to ask then about you joining Aonia. It seems pretty obvious as to why you would have agreed to take the gig, as it were. But in your own words, what made you decide, yeah, sweet, I'll become a full-time member of this band?
Yeah, it was, I knew the guys for a while before, from gigging on the same circuit. We crossed paths quite a few times in gigs, still with my other band. And we'd constantly bump into each other and obviously befriend the guys. And then one of the Aonia fests, they asked me to jump in as a sub for one of the gigs, and that felt good, and it went well, and we all got on well, and we gelled. And then when the guys asked me again to sort of do a similar thing on a more permanent basis, it wasn't a difficult decision at all, to be honest. I think the biggest difficult side of it was just having the time to do it and making sure that I could, because at the time I was already in 2 bands at the time, and I'd be adding a 3rd one. So for me personally, that was the biggest, decision, was to try and make sure that it was fair on everyone else in all 3 bands that I could do that. But from a creative side and from a, getting on with the guy side, it wasn't a difficult decision at all.
No, that's cool.
We're very glad to have you.
Sorry. Go on, Mel, what was that?
I just said we're very glad to have Stuart.
Well, I mean, was it simply a matter of, well, we worked together with Stu, and obviously subbed in at Aonia Fest and other times and so on, that you were like, look, we got to ask him even if we know he's mega busy?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's fair enough.
We knew that he was a good guitarist. We knew that he was a nice guy. We'd played with him before. So when James announced that his wife was pregnant and he'd be leaving, I think it was like a day later that we're like, shall we message Stu? Let's message Stu. See if he wants to join full time. And we're very glad that he did.
Yeah. And Stu, I mean, it's the British Underground. You've got to be in 3 or 4 bands. It's done thing now. We've got a shortage of drummers as well out there, so they all have to double up and triple up. So Why not?
Tell us about it.
You're not the alone. I know so many bands that are constantly looking for a drummer. That's a point then. Who wants to tell me if you want to put it, not whether or not you've got a drummer, because you can announce it in times, but how goes that search? Going well?
I think so. I think it'd be a little bit. We don't want to talk about it too much, obviously,
of course,
because it'd be a little bit sort of disrespectful. No, we've had a guy come along and have a jam with us, and things are looking positive for the time being. So we'll see how it goes. But I don't think we really want to speak too much about it at the moment.
Say no more. That's still very positive. Absolutely. So guys, we're gonna do the first round of choices. So one each, because as we said, it'd be too many otherwise. So one each, you can choose a game, video game, whichever one you want from whatever era you want, or a book, if that is your preference. So we will start with Mel.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the increasingly misnamed trilogy. That's my favorite.
Why is that increasingly misnamed? I have to ask. I'm not too familiar with it, so.
Because there's 5 books.
Oh, so it's called a trilogy.
I think he started off to write 3, and then eventually he wrote 4, and then he wrote 5. So by the time it hit 4, it was the misnamed, and when he did number 5, when he wrote Mostly Harmless, it was the increasingly misnamed. And then at the end, I won't spoil it for anybody who's working their way through it, but he ends Mostly Harmless in an incredibly definitive way that prohibits writing any more Hitchhiker's books. I think he got tired of it and wanted to do Dirk Gently instead. But yeah, no, I just is so wonderfully written. With lots and lots of little embedded clauses and asides. So in the very beginning of the first book, there's a bit where the protagonist, Arthur Dent, is he wakes up and he's hungover, and there is a bulldozer ready to bulldoze down his house to make room for a motorway bypass. And then the guy who's the foreman of the construction, it describes him, and then you get like this 2 or 3 page just jaunt off into his backstory and his ancestry, and then brings you back to the present. And the end of chapter 1 ends with the Earth being destroyed. And then the rest of the 5 books is about Arthur Dent and his journey through time and space with his mate Ford Prefect, who is not actually from Guildford, but is actually from Beetlejuice. So one of the planets around it. And it subverts so many expectations. So it's at one point he winds up on a spaceship called the Heart of Gold, and he runs into another human woman who he'd met at a party back when they were both on Earth. And so it works. He's obviously incredibly smitten, and it leads you to believe that it's going to be a love story, and it's just not. And she just shuts him down at every pass, and they never get together. And I like that, unless you watch the film, in which case they do. You can tell in the film the point at which Douglas Adams died while they were filming it, because about the first half an hour is wonderfully in keeping with the style, and then it just becomes like a rom-com in space.
Really? Okay. You see, this is, I mean, I've never read it. I've not even seen the film. I mean, obviously I'm aware of it, but to try and sell it to someone. So what you were just doing there was so frantic and so wow, there's so much going on. How would you sell this series in a short, I guess, almost a few words to someone who had never read it, heard of it, and thought, you know, I want to give it a go, but it seems like such a chore?
It's a wonderful mixture of sci-fi and humor. Incredibly well written, with a completely and utterly relatable protagonist who you root for and pity at the same time.
So take it you didn't like the movie adaptation then?
No, I was disappointed in it. I really enjoyed it for the first half an hour when we went to the cinema. Like I said, it was incredibly in keeping with it. Followed the books, and where it didn't follow the book, it was very much in keeping with a lot of the things that Adams had written, either in the book or in the radio series. Then it, like I said, it just seemed to take a left turn away from that sort of very irreverent sci-fi. It's not even a parody, it's just sci-fi mixed with humor, this very irreverent sci-fi comedy style, into essentially becoming a romantic comedy in space. And that was not the point of it. because in the books, Trillian just rejects Arthur. There's even a throwaway line that she has where she needed to talk to the one person who she really cared about, the one person who would actually understand, but Zaphod wasn't available, so she had to settle for going to talk to Arthur. And she's just a very quite strong figure. She was an astrophysicist and a journalist in the books, and it kind of brought her down to just be a little bit of a screaming victim, which she was a little bit in the TV series as well, I suppose. But no, I'm just, it's an odd thing. It's a series that tends to have a very, very fanatic fan base, who are like just this little corner of weirdos. And my dad gave me the books when I was about, he gave me the first one anyway when I was about 12 or 13, and I just loved it ever since. And I reread it about every 4 or 5 years.
Well, your passion certainly comes through for it. It's that level of passion, I think, that makes people more interested. Like, again, like I said already, I've never even considered reading it. Now I'm like, okay, I better check this out.
Highly recommend it. It's great fun.
Jo, your choice then.
So was this the book?
It can be a book or a video game, depending upon if you play games or you read.
Just checking. So yeah, I don't really play video games since I was young. So in terms of a book, there's lots of books that I would take on a desert island with me. But if I'm on a desert island and it's deserted, as indicated, yes, I want a book that's going to take me to a different place. And that book would be Memoirs of a Geisha.
Okay.
Now, this book was given to me by Arthur Golden, by my mum. It was about 10 years ago. So I'm going on holiday, I need a book, not really sure. She said, try this. And I was a little bit like, it doesn't grab me at all. But from the very, very first page, I was right in the story. It was the use of the descriptions, the colours, the just real sense of everything, the sights, the smells, the sounds of the place that this book happens in, just took me on a completely, I was just completely immersed in the book. And I didn't put it down for the whole holiday. And it's just been one of those books. I've not read it, to be fair, for a couple of years. But it was just one of those books where I think if I want to get away from, if I just want to be taken completely out of where I currently am, I'm picking up that book. So if I was on a desert island, I would want to not be on a desert island by myself, because, you know, that's like my worst nightmare. No one to talk to. I would take that book. Yeah.
I say you're going to have to explain this one to me. I've heard of it, but is this a fantasy, or is it historical? Is it literally Memoirs of a Geisha? Am I being stupid here?
It's a fantasy. It's not real life. It's just a story of the life of a geisha. And it just follows the life of a particular geisha and everything she goes through, from what she has to wear, her daily routine, how she has to work, and the things that they have to do. But it was all about the description and everything, all the words that they used in the book, the descriptive words that just took me straight there. The story wasn't, it was captivating in a sense, but it wasn't the most thrilling journey. So like Mel was talking about, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is kind of like, you know, an amazing kind of story with lots of things happening. Whereas this story isn't particularly, you know, amazing, but the way that the book describes it and the way that the storyteller tells the story, it just blew my mind, really. So yeah, I recommend it. I would recommend it to anybody. It was really good. Really enjoyed it. Not seen the film. There was a film, I think, made.
Oh, was there really?
There was a film. I didn't, because I was so, I loved the book so much. I didn't want to risk it. So I've never watched it. So
yeah, you kind of wonder if characters and things you will have pictured in your head and how you see them in the book will obviously potentially not reflect. I mean, this works for anybody that's ever watched an adaptation of a book, work they enjoy. Perhaps how you picture it isn't as it is. Is it something, that world, the world of a geisha and in real life and stuff, is that something you've ever considered traveling to go experience from a perspective outside?
100%. I love everything about culture. I lived in London for quite a few years, and the culture that's there was just fascinating. I would love to go to travel to many corners of the globe and discover different cultures. Yeah, I would 100% go. Yeah.
I'd have to ask them before we move on. What's been your favorite culture to experience to date?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Probably a Polish wedding. I dated someone who was Polish for a while. Went to a wedding. It was 2 full days. I don't generally drink spirits, and I drank vodka for 2 days and didn't die. So, you know, if somehow that miracle happened, they've got it down. It's because they force feed you food like every 2 hours or something. But that was brilliant. That was 2 days, a 2-day party. It was unbelievable, the things that they do at the wedding. It was amazing. Yeah. Oh,
incredible. Okay, Andy, let's do you then. Go on, Andy. Yeah.
I'm trying not to repeat what everybody else has said, which sort of gives you a very good idea about why we'll get on so well. Yeah. I'm not a massive gamer, though I do like anything to do probably like Real Racing 3 or anything else. Like if it's a bit of a racing game, I'm on for that. Books and stuff, again, I could just go with everything everybody else has said, read them, listened to them, watched the TV programs, listened to the radio plays, everything else. So I'm on those. I'm totally in with Joe on stuff like that. I've started watching American Gods, the Neil Gaiman book, on Sky. And compared to the book, I'm just, it's really doing me head in. No, Shadow doesn't look like that. He's bigger. And all that kind of stuff. So that's really strange. So book, if I was on a desert island, I think it'd be something by Bear Grylls.
Oh, survival book, right?
How to survive.
Be handy.
Yeah, I'm very, as the bassist, I'm probably just a practical person in the band.
Very sensible.
I'll carry heavy stuff.
Yeah, I should have said at the start, but we always get asked so many different questions when we start going through categories. We go, well, can I have this? Or can I have an internet access and all that? We just ended up giving up and being like, you know what, it's a free for all. Yes, you can have internet access. Yes, you can have this.
Yeah, I think if it's books, I like Joe. I think I'm going to go for something that's so painfully stereotypical. Anything by Terry Pratchett. Anything disco.
Anything.
Yeah. Carp Jugulum, Interesting Times, Pyramids, Faust, Eric, Mort. I don't know. Anything on that line, I would be very happy with.
Oh man, you're a man after my whole. I don't know. You can't see it's too far.
Oh, there you go. 40 odd books of Pratchett. Then
that is. He's my favorite author ever. He literally, I mean, my entire arm, is tattooed with Pratchett stuff. I completely. You could choose anything and you'd have a great time.
You could do. Yeah, absolutely everything and go for it. Yeah.
When did you first discover Pratchett and Discord and so on?
God, I'm as you say, you just go back to the early stuff and you sort of go. I don't know. Somehow you seem to. It's always been there. As kids, you sort of go, how old was I actually? Because it sort of felt, you were all in the same genre. It was all the Lord of the Rings. It was all, strange enough, exactly what Mel was saying, Hitchhiker's Guide. And they all sort of merged into that whole role of fantasy that growing up, you just go, when's the next one out? What's going to be next? And you just absorbed all of it. So it will have been passed on by friends and contemporaries and stuff like that will have said, have a read of this. This is a great one. Then obviously once you've read the couple, you're hoping they're in the right order. Though it doesn't seem to matter. Because you can quickly work out. Weird Sisters can be a bit strange if you get that in the wrong order, I think, because you can't work out who's the king. Why are you a king?
Yeah.
So I can't exactly say when. A long time ago.
Yeah, and it's simple as you said, he's always been there, and I think that's a first summation. They used to say Pratchett was unadaptable, and then of course they tried to do a couple of adaptations. Have you had much experience with that? I don't want to colour your view,
because obviously they've done the radio versions of Weird Sisters, and they've done an animation for that as well.
Yeah.
It's one of those strange ones. Obviously, they've done the Sky versions of Going Postal and stuff like that, which actually, do you know what? Fair play, it's not too bad. But reading the book, or actually, strange enough, I quite enjoy some of the. I've revisited them as audiobooks. And some of the narration is absolutely fantastic. If it's I can't remember, there's a couple of women that I've read for him who have actually done the narration. But we've had, Baldrick, Tony Robinson.
Oh, Tony Robinson, of course.
Neil from The Young Ones has done a couple. And there's another gentleman that's done stuff later on, and he's absolutely fantastic. The voice of Death is just fabulous, and I always enjoy who's going to do the librarian and go Hook. So, and it's like, who does it the best?
It's interesting that they would do the audio recordings, a lot of those voice actors, because they appeared in the video games of the Discworld doing voices as well. People like Rob Brydon as well and things like that.
Yeah,
it's incredible. We could I think we could fill the next hour as I just talking about Discord.
I think Joe's agreeing with us then. I'm quite sure Mel will be piping in there. If you missed the conversation at the beginning, it's like why we all get on so well is because we could have all just swapped over the books and we'd have all read our films and said exactly the same thing.
I was just going to pop in with, you know how you were talking about Terry Pratchett? Our ex-guitarist, James, was in a stage production of Mort.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah.
Who did he play?
Tim and I went to go watch him. Up in York, yeah.
I'd have thought it'd be more of a Rincewind character.
Probably.
All right, Stu, are you going to complete a full house of books, or are we going to be doing a video game for you?
No, I'll go a book again, but this was really difficult for me because I don't read a lot of fiction. I mainly read history books and stuff like that. But a fiction that I did really enjoy, that I keep going back to, was World War Z, the book. I thought that was incredible. I thought it was really well written when it came out.
Yeah.
I almost picked that as my book, by the way.
Yeah. Great book. But yeah, that was the one that I remember when that came out, and it just being a little bit different. Not what I was expecting. Really well researched. I think that was the thing that always got me the most about it, just the sort of micro research on tiny little details around the world. And I always found that, because I've always had a lot of interest in different cultures and stuff like that. It was really great to see someone researching, like small little details about a place or and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's the one I'd pick. Like I said, it was quite a difficult one for me with books because I tend to read boring autobiographies and history stuff, but
it's your choice. You could have picked one of them, but I mean, what an excellent choice. It is an incredible book, as you said yourself, Max Brooks's thing. And I love that my personal favorite thing was about that level of detail as well, scientific into, in fact, basically for me, it made it feel real, like something that felt real. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely so. Yeah, especially for something, because the zombie thing isn't something that I'm into particularly. I've never really, I'm not a massive horror watcher, to be honest, but zombie films especially, I was never that keen on them. But the way that book's written is really, really sort of refreshing and different, and it looks at it more from the zombie side of it's nearly just it's like a byproduct. It's like a small detail of it. It's more about the sort of politics and the that side of it in the book, and that's what I really liked about it. It was used in a good way, sort of vaguely sort of criticizing like the US government, which was his country because he knew about it, but also like just social sort of aspects of it, and I like that part of it because I always quite enjoyed the sort of post-apocalyptic stuff, and they sort of delved into that quite a lot.
Have you did you ever consider checking out his other sort of sister work, things like the Zombie Survival Guide?
Yeah, I read the guide first, was the first one I'd seen, read, sorry. So I'd read that when I can't remember when that was now. Must be 2005 or something like that. Must be around about then. But the World War Z was, I mean, it's completely different, isn't it? It's a completely different tone. But no, I'm not aware of any other books he's written, to be honest.
I'll give you a recommendation then. He's written a new one in last year. I found it, I randomly came across it. It's basically similar to World War Z in that it's a diary entries and stuff like that, except it's surrounding what do they call them? What do we call Bigfoot? What are they?
Sasquatch.
There we go.
Sasquatch,
Sasquatches. Yes, there we go.
Okay.
I can't remember what it's called, but it's out now.
I'll give that a search.
All right. I have to ask then as well, because it seems to be the done thing with all your book choices. The movie adaptation of World War Z.
Terrible.
Did you see it?
Well, I remember being very excited about it coming out, about a film coming out, but I'd always spoke about, and this is obviously before the days of The Walking Dead, I'd always said that the book was screaming to be done as like a mini-series, like a Band of Brothers type 10-part series thing was what I had in my head that they could have done. And then when I heard they were doing a film, I thought, oh, all right, okay, fair enough, that might be interesting. And then when they said, oh, it's a Brad Pitt film, I was like, slightly less interesting now. And then when I did see it, there's not really any. I think the only real relation to the book is the title. Really, it came across in the end. I found very little in the film that related to the book itself.
It's impossible to adapt into a movie. It's as simple as that. So why are you even trying?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. That's what I mean. I think it was one of them things that probably could have been done better as a series. They could have done a series where every episode centers on a different part of the story, and I don't know how that would work budget wise, but that was always what I sort of had in my mind that they could have done with it. So yeah, the film, it's one of them things that I keep forgetting existed, the film, to be honest. But the book was one that I have come back to quite a few times.
It's the difference, isn't it? That effectively the book will be timeless to a degree. The movie is just a thing that you see once and then forget it even exists.
Well, it works in a way for me because a lot of the times when I've had films that I've enjoyed that books come out, it's sort of ruined my impression of the book because they sort of overwrite your imagination of how you think characters are supposed to look and stuff like that. But because the film is so far gone from the book, sorry, it's not impacted that at all for me. So I can quite happily go back to the book and completely ignore the fact that the film ever existed.
Absolutely. Guys, that was 4 very unique, very clearly well-loved and passionate stories about each of your choices. So now we're going to fly through the next set and we're going to look at horror movies. You all move position because Mel went off, but we're going to start with you anyway, Mel. Mel, your horror movie choice.
Shaun of the Dead, as I said earlier.
You did. Okay, so why? Why?
Okay, so I can't deal with gore or people being tortured. I can't cope with it in films. Craig, our manager, constantly takes the mick out of me because he's like, "You've got too much empathy. You can't cope with it. You think they're real." And that's it. Like I can't even the scene in James Bond where they're torturing him, the Daniel Craig one. I'm like, I can't cope with it. I can't watch it. But with Shaun of the Dead, because the gore is comedy, it's done so over the top and it's so obviously fake. I can cope with it. Without feeling the need to go and be violently ill somewhere. I'm a bit of a wuss, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's I haven't seen it for a few years, but when I think, I'm like, well, it's got some gory bits. There are some blood and guts spilt here and there.
There's the bit at the Winchester where her flatmate's being torn apart by the zombies, and you see, but it's so obviously fake at that point, and that's part of it, and that's part of the trial. It was low budget, wasn't it, as well? But
of course, Dylan Moran's character, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, and but it was very obviously done as, and also it's got like a nice ending. Like, I obviously characters pass away because it is the nature of the story, but in the end, and I'm sorry if this is a spoiler alert, but it's been out for like 15 years, folks. But at the end, when they're able to kind of cure-ish zombieism and reintegrate them to a certain degree into society, and his mate's still there, and they're still friends and everything. And so I just think the ending's a bit happier than a lot of horror films, and I like the humor of it, and I like Simon Pegg, so that's my choice.
I had to ask then, was that your first experience of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, or are you a spaced person? Do you go back to those early days?
Spaced.
I am not from your country, so no. It was my husband and I went to the cinema to see was it 28 Days Later or 28 Weeks Later, whatever zombie film it was that came out around the same time, and I did not enjoy it. And so he said, okay, well, next week we'll come and we'll see Shaun of the Dead. And I was like, literally just said, I don't like zombie films. I don't like this. I enjoyed reading World War Z, by the way. I can cope with it in books. I can't cope with it on the cinema. But yeah, so he's like, oh, no, you really enjoy it. It's like a comedy. So no, that was my first experience of Simon Pegg, was Shaun of the Dead. That's
fascinating that one week you would see 28 Days Later, and then a week later you'd see Shaun of the Dead. They are completely different films, even if the overarching theme is infection. I mean, that's funny. What about...
We went through a period of time where each of us would pick a film one week on the other. So like we'd see Phantom of the Opera, and then we'd see something shooty. Obviously made an impression on me.
Yeah. What about the Cornetto trilogy overall? Is Shaun of the Dead your favorite of the three, or?
Do you know what? I've seen Hot Fuzz, but I haven't seen the World's End.
World's End?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, okay.
I should, because I know I'd really enjoy it. But no, I do really enjoy. I really enjoyed the Shaun of the Dead. I preferred that one to Hot Fuzz. I think maybe just because I have enjoyed reading horror. Maybe that's why I've enjoyed that a bit better.
Considering horror is predominantly blood and guts for the most part, particularly in the modern day world, that you can find any horror movie in the last 20 years or so on that you enjoyed, that's a good thing. Jo, it's your turn.
I'm going with Evil Dead.
Okay, right. Stop right there. We know what the question is. Original or sequel?
Original.
Wow. Okay. So really, do you prefer do you prefer the more horror side over the comedic style that came in?
No, for me, it's the fine balance of them both. I'm a pretty similar to Mel. The blood and guts can reach a certain level, and then I'm just like, nope, not watching that, no. So for me, it's got to be a fine line of that comedic. It's not real, don't really look real. It's a bit crap. It's a bit, the effects and stuff, but it's just, I think it's the rawness of it that I really like, and it's the comedy value and the not too serious about it. So yeah, it's just brilliant films.
Yeah, I mean, I get the real, because obviously it was such a super duper low budget at that time. So it seems like there's a running theme between you both so far, in that low budget means, well, okay, it's going to detract from the reality of it. And that kind of, whereas normally you'd kind of think you want high powered visuals and to look realistic and stuff.
Yeah, I've just watched, what's that new zombie one?
Army of the Dead.
Army of the Dead. Watched that, quite enjoyed that actually. And I do like all the films. I do like them when it looks real and it's great, but it's just, I have to be in the mood for that. Most of the time for me, it's about the enjoyment of a film. I don't want to go to bed and have nightmares. I want to sit, watch a film, not have to, get scared or really focus on a film. I just like to, it's cool, just breeze in and out of it, laugh. But for me, it's, if I'm going to watch something like that, I'll go to the cinema. Like if I really want to, be there 100%. But for me, in terms of horror, I have to have that bit of separation.
No, that's completely fair. Andy, I got to jump in quickly. You seem like you were trying to say something, but you're muted.
Just unmuting. Now I'm just laughing. Again, as I said, we're all on the same page as a band. It's crazy, and I'm really enjoying the original. The original is definitely better. So yeah, I'm with everybody on all this. It's been an interesting one because again, Tim gave us the Werewolf in London, which certainly would have been on my list. And as Tim and I are very similar age, I think we grew up with that genre. So from Chucky and all that lot through to who else did we? Obviously Nightmare on Elm Street and Don't Go in That House and all those video nasties and snuff kind of movies that were out through the 80s we lived through. I think if I was going to continue on the things that I would think about, obviously Hellraiser would be there. Hellraiser series, Event Horizon.
Oh wow!
Would be there, which is just a phenomenal film.
I did not sleep for 2 days after I watched Event Horizon.
I can believe
it. She said, "Watch this now, you'll like it. It's science fiction." She lied.
Imagine if they'd left in all the stuff they cut. If they'd left in the stuff they cut from Event Horizon, you would have been awake for a week, I think.
Yeah, which is just amazing. And I think that's the thing now, because I've been through all the Saw movies and Final Destination, this and that. We grew up with them. I'm kind of not immune to them, but numbed by them, shall we say?
Yeah.
I think I'll go with the comedy, because that just brings something new to it. So I did like that, what I mentioned to Tim before, with the vampire films, with Blade. What is it? Blade with Wesley Snipes and the other ones with Kate Beckinsale. If I was going down the Kate Beckinsale route again, I think I'd have to be Van Helsing, just for the boots. God. Just for the boots. But if I had to be pushed, let's have another Peter Jackson film. I think. I think I'd go
Dead.
Brain Dead. That's the one. Or what's the other one? Basket Case. So I think Basket Case.
Okay. Right, so you flew through so much. I mean, yeah, you're right. You've got a rich history of that. And I do find it really intriguing as well, the fact that you're suggesting you've seen so many and you're numb to it. Something I can completely relate to. Numb is the word I would use to describe a horror movie experience these days. Put it this way, Joel, you said you loved Army of the Dead, and I I'm each to our own. Of course, I'm thinking, God, I hated that movie. Hated that. It was 2.5 hours of my life. I'm never going to get back, kind of thing, But
John
then,
Batista, bear wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, taste is taste.
It was good for the kind of film it was.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it was better than expected. Is probably more accurate.
Okay. No, that's cool. So, right. So you said Brain Dead, then you went to Basket Case. Now I'm torn between the two, because I think Brain Dead is the movie. That's the pure entertainment, and obviously the level of violence and gore of that reaches such a slapstick level that you can't take it seriously.
Take that, you intergalactic space bastard.
Yeah. But Basket Case, I think, it's obviously got such more traditional horror, even though it's very, very silly. It's certainly more traditional horror. Why Basket Case overall then, over everything else?
It was one of those films. I think I saw Brain Dead and I just went, what the hell? And I was young, I was in my teens, and so it was like, what else has this guy done? What can he do? And I just watched it, and I didn't know whether to. I think I just laughed a lot through it. I think it was just one of those things when I was a teen that we watched and watched and watched. It was like watching Monty Python again and learning lines from it that you could actually repeat.
Yeah.
And it was just out there, a bit strange. And again, because I think at the time you felt as if you were possibly a little bit, not subversive, but unique and outside the norms, because you knew about this strange New Zealand guy that was making these really odd films. But we are back in the 80s, I think.
Okay. What about is being so numb to horror? Have you seen something in the modern world of horror? Say the last decade. Just say the last decade that has really, really excited you, made you kind of refreshed briefly, as it were. Tough one, right?
That's hard. I sort of think I feel like I've seen everything. It's like it's hard to find something that is. It's, as you say, are they going to reboot Lord of the Rings? How are they going to do it as a different series? Are they going to do that? And it's with everything, as human beings, we seek out novelty, we seek out new things, we try and find something interesting and new. I'm getting old, and it's a lot harder to actually stimulate those neurons to the same extent as what they were when I was a teenager. When I first saw Nightmare on Elm Street, that was just a shocker. Nothing since then has made me do that. And I think that's the kind of thing. It's a bit, watching the Cenobites and watching Pinhead was those movies. It was like watching Star Wars for the first time. If you go back and watch Star Wars now and you see the pieces of spangles for Darth Vader. They stuck the sweets on his chest, you know, and you're watching it in 4K HD and you're just going, oh my God, how did I love this so much when I was 8 or 9 or whatever the case may be. But it took you away. It gave you those feelings at that time. It'd not been done. So watching Freddie and watching Jason and watching all those guys, they had not been done. Yeah, okay, we had Nosferatu, we had Peter Cushing, we had the whole Hammer House of Horror, which I grew up with through, you know, 1970. Peter Cushing and oh God, what's the Peter? Oh, I actually met the man. Vincent Price, sorry.
Oh, Vincent Price, yeah.
Good old Vincent Price, you know, just fabulous stuff, but so cheesy. But again, if you're watching that when you were 8, you were sort of like, I'm not sleeping tonight. And so having that kind of stuff all as a predecessor to all the other things, you sort of just go, oh, no. And a lot of it is just reboots.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, okay, it's just another variation of, it's just another variation of, it's just a variation of.
Yeah, there's nothing original anymore.
I drop into more fantasies. I think like the series is probably more entertaining now. Things like The Magicians or something like that is something that just lets me get away, which is a bit of humour and a bit funny and a bit silly. I think, again, finding that escapism in humour, even if it's got a horror element, certainly makes it a lot more enjoyable.
I have to say, if I was on a desert island, I definitely wouldn't be taking a horror film. No,
yeah.
on my own, on a desert island, the last thing I want to do is scare myself silly. So I would on that point, I would probably take Blackadder.
If we had opened up to any movie ever, which, you know, considering the site just deals with horror and horror exclusively, we will realize there would be the possibility that people would start pulling out Mary Poppins or Bambi, and it wasn't really going to work as well.
It doesn't quite fit with your branding, does it?
All right, Stu, you're up last, man.
For me, it'd be Dog Soldiers.
Oh wow, Neil Marshall.
Oh,
yeah, great film. Yeah, I'm not the biggest horror fan, like I mentioned before, so I'm a little bit picky when it comes to horrors. But Dog Soldiers always had that great sort of mix of being, for me anyway, genuinely sort of creepy, and it had, you know, the humor involved as well. You know, it's a very British humored film. I also always thought I never was keen on CGI stuff, and I always loved the fact that it's all, you know, it's real, puppets or whatever they were, and I always thought it was genuinely creepy. More so because it's not CGI and stuff like that. So I'm going for that one.
It's a great choice because it's almost a forgotten Neil Marshall movie. People think Neil Marshall and they go, The Descent guy, that's an amazing movie, and then they forget Dog Soldiers was also his work, and great. So very
awesome
British.
film. I always thought the woods that they sort of do it in looks very similar to the woods near where I grew up in. So it there was like an added bit of sort of lingering fear after watching the film. Whenever I'd walk through those woods, that there'd always be a bit of like.
You didn't consider going to look to see if you could find a valley and a house?
I certainly wasn't looking for anything. No, I was getting out there as quick as I could.
Oh, incredible. All right, guys, I am keeping you a while. I'm sorry. These do tend to drag on, especially the more people there are. So let's get the records out of the way, and then I've got a few more bits for you, and then we can all say goodnight. Mel, get us started with your musical choice. One record, please.
I would bring Nightwish, and it would be a toss-up between Wishmaster and Once, but I think I'd have to go with Once just because of Ghost Love Score.
Okay.
I realize that is the most basic answer for a female vocalist in an operatic metal band to give, but I make no apologies for the fact that I love Nightwish.
Is it Nightwish as a unit you love, or is it one specific member? I'd have to ask.
I loved the albums with Talia. I never got to see them live with her, unfortunately, because I got into them after they had moved on to Annette. I've seen them live with Annette, and I've seen them live with Floor, and I really, really loved Floor's band After Forever. So I saw After Forever when they played at Rock City in Nottingham, and then I saw Revamp when they played at Rock City in Nottingham when they were supporting Epica, and so I really, really like Floor. as well. And her version of Ghost Love Score, which we saw at Bloodstock in 2018, was like just amazing. So I really like Floor. I really liked Tarja. I think that Thomas is just an absolute incredible genius when it comes to musicality and his writing. When I saw them at Bloodstock, and then I went to go and see them on their tour, I went to Birmingham, and I came away feeling like I've had an experience. Like I felt like, when you go to the theater and you see just a really incredibly powerful musical or something, I came away feeling like that, like just kind of almost like I couldn't move at the end of it. I think it's just the power in the music and the way that they create the different soundscapes and the stories. So
is there a specific era you like the most? I mean, we are effectively talking about 3 eras, 3 vocalists. Is there one you enjoy the most? Is it basically the early stuff more than anything else, or Floor?
I do prefer the earlier stuff. I really do. The later stuff, the longer songs, I have to like really be in the mood to listen to like the half-hour epics. Though at one point they almost say Aonia. There's one point in the spoken bit, it's the last track on the previous album that they released with Floor, and they say Iona, I-O-N-A, and I was like, almost guys.
Almost.
But no, I prefer the early ones. I think a lot of them are possibly a little bit catchier, so songs like Wishmaster and Sleeping Sun is obviously beautiful, and Come Cover Me and stuff it's you can pick it up a bit quicker, but their more recent albums do as well.
That's fair.
Elan's got a very lovely catchy chorus as well, hasn't it? So
yeah. I wanted to ask as well, so you said you saw them when Annette was singing for the band. Was that 2007, around Dark Passion Play, 2008? Yeah,
it was the 2008 Bloodstock. And she, like, the week after, they cancelled a massive run of their US shows because she was poorly. So I don't want to like judge her performance, because I think it was at the beginning of her being really poorly. I'll tell you who impressed me that night was Marco, because she was dropping notes and he was jumping up to join to fill in the bits that she obviously was very poorly and couldn't do. So I don't want to like nastily judge Annette, because actually she's a very, very good vocalist in her own right. I think they maybe tried to push her to do things that she wasn't like her voice wasn't particularly comfortable doing in the same way that Tarja or Floor with their more operatic training and their wider ranges were able to do. But I quite like quite a few of the stuff that they wrote for her, like Amaranth and things, were lovely.
Yeah, the Part and the Pendulum and stuff like that. I mean, I asked because that was my experience. I mean, we pretty much double up. I got into them after when Annette was fronting the band, and I saw them play the Astoria in London when they were playing venues that bloody small back in the day. And then eventually it would be same year, Bloodstock with Floor. Okay, cool. Joe, what's your choice then? Although I think I have a rough idea what you already said, didn't you?
Well, so I keep trying to go back to this I'm on a desert island situation. Yeah. So I was thinking, this was a really difficult question for me, and I was thinking, do I want something metal to gear me on to survive? And I thought, if I'm on a desert island, I'm not going to survive, quite honestly, just from the lack of conversation, probably.
It's because none of us remembers to bring a Bear Grylls book. That's the problem.
Yeah. If we get stranded, please, I want to be stranded with you, Andy, because you're going to know what to do. I'll be the entertainment. Fine, I can sing and all that business. But no, for me, an album that I go back to time and time again is an opera album. It's by a mezzo soprano called Cecilia Bartoli. She's an Italian mezzo soprano, and she has an album called Sospiri, which means sighing, sighs in Italian. And a lot of the songs on that album are very expressive, quite they come from tragic stories within opera. But her voice, she's a true mezzo soprano, which means she's got the deep, rich bottom end, but she's also got the top notes as well. And listening to her singing anything is it is, like Mel says, an experience. I feel like when I've never seen her live, would love to go to Italy and see her in an opera, but she's just so expressive. And I'm there with her, you know, I'm 100% there with every note she sings, and she's just a lot of opera singers that I listen to can be very they sing it beautifully, you know, the notes are on point and everything, but she adds that element of reality, of the rawness of a voice. So if it's a, you know, a real difficult song, you hear it in her voice. She's not bothered about the fact that that note wasn't not quite right. Obviously the note is right, but it's not as pure because she's within her voice. She's acting that this is a difficult moment in the story or whatever, and you hear it, but it doesn't affect the performance or anything like that. So yeah, for me, she's a true performer and brilliant opera singer.
You almost describe it like, it almost gives like a level of realism. I mean, I know obviously music is, you know, but where you listen to music, listen to a recording, you can often feel disconnected from it, even if you've got an emotional feeling towards and so on. You describe what sounds like almost like it makes it more real for you with those sort of difficult moments.
100%, yeah. A lot of other singers that you listen to, I listen to them for the learning the song. So she does a lot of songs, and she can vary, play with the melody a little bit to suit the emotion that she's trying to convey. Whereas I listen to other tracks of that song, but different singers, because I want to, I'm listening to it to see how they, you know, how they portray it and whatnot. But when you listen to her, it's the full picture. It's everything. You're there, and it's the full story. So yeah, it's raw. It's completely raw, and she's got an absolutely natural talent. A little bit like Andrea Bocelli. He's also got that extreme rawness within his voice, almost non-operatic in certain songs that he does. But yeah, it's that rawness for me that's, yeah, brilliant. And that would, if I was on a desert island, that's that. I'm shutting my eyes, and that's taking me away.
I was going to ask, because I was wondering what it made you feel like, whether it's an emotional thing or whether it's about uplifting or building your energy up and so on. But I guess it's about relaxation more than anything else, right?
Yeah, it's it gives me a satisfaction that no other music can.
Really?
Like I listen to metal, and I was wavering between the opera and Ancient Bards, the Alliance of the Kings. That album for me is when I need to go. I need to get on. That is on full volume. But yeah, I have a very different emotional response to opera than I do to metal. Do you find that, Mel? It's interesting because I have a really different emotional experience from opera than I do to metal, and they're both extreme emotions, but they're completely they're just completely different for me.
Yeah, no, I do. I find the same with metal. It tends to be sort of oftentimes an excitement or like an almost frenzied, whereas listening to different opera songs, it seems to be almost maybe more plaintive and wistful, I guess.
Yeah.
And not to say that there aren't, you know, obviously there are metal songs that can make you feel quite wistful and plaintive as well. But yeah, no, I'm with you. It's like they activate different bits of my brain and different bits of my heart.
Opera's more euphoric for me. I get more of that kind of feel, whereas with metal I feel more, yeah, you know, like I'm ready. I can take on the world a little bit.
Awful. Oh, great. All right, Andy, you're up.
I can't be intellectual and say Pulse the Planet Suite or anything nasty like that. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. It really is a kind of a toss-up for what I grew up with, and so I'm going to go Motorhead Ace of Spades, because the minute that song starts, the minute album starts, and then through to The Chase is Better Than the Catch and We Are the Road Crew, and it's just yeah, I remember standing there. Saw the Bomber tour. I saw the Ace of Spades tour. I was there many nights. It just brings back great memories, and I just love that. That trio was just the perfection. God bless the three of them, even though I'm an atheist. If I'm going, but then I go, okay, I'm going to cheat, because if it's an album, I'll take a double album. So I'm going to possibly take Thin Lizzy Live and Dangerous.
Oh,
and that's because Phil was the reason I probably picked up bass. Him and John McCoy, strangely enough, from Gillen.
Really?
Yeah, it was. Although Geezer Butler and all the other guys were out there, it really was. Just watching Phil get up there, to be able to sing. He was the coolest black guy that there was at the time, and it was just like, and he's Irish, and I'm half Irish. It was just like, the man sang to me, and he sang through his bass, and he sang through his vocals and his songs and his songwriting. So I think I'd have to be there with Emerald and singing off on the Irish Isle, and asking the girls if they'd like a little bit more Irish in them.
Almost have to ask them, considering the bass influences and a lot of ones you mentioned out, vocalists as well, Lemmy, Phil, and so on. Vocals, then, was that something you thought, yeah, I'm going to be a bass player and a vocalist?
I wish. If I just only if I could, yeah. I mean, as you can see, both of them are, could they be any more alpha male? I think any growing up lad, growing up in the 70s and sort of that would be like, the two of them. Okay, you could class earlier on in the 70s with Susie Quattro, who I thought was absolutely phenomenal, and really inspired me as well. But Lemmy and Phil was just like, oh. And obviously John McCoy, who stood there in the Gillen band, playing with his hand on the top of the bass, and again, a larger than life character. One of his next bands was called Mammoth, because they were all mammoth. That was the thing. It was just inspiring. Gordon Rowley there's been so many great bassists. He was a great vocalist as well, actually. Yeah, I don't know, that powerful driving thump with alpha male. It was just like, yeah, that's it. I want to be that big guy in the front of the band doing it. I'll do, and I still take up as much stage as possibly can. The girls will agree. They've both got the bruises and the scars.
Oh goodness me! All right, Stu, you're up. What have you got for us?
Yeah, this was an impossible question, really, wasn't it? I listened to so many different types of stuff and all up for different moves, but a one that I probably would have to come back to is I was always a massive Muse fan. So I'd probably got Origin of Symmetry, which was one of the first album that I sort of got into, well, of them anyway. But that was when I was back in school, and that was like a massive thing for me when they came out.
Oh, yeah. I've just looked. I checked 2001. Yeah, I was in school. Well, I just left school when this came out. So I remember this being a big deal in my youth as well.
Yeah, it was huge. And I think they had that sort of Queen-esque bombast, and they were always a bit over the top, and I always found it a bit straight. They sort of got compared to bands that I never thought they really sounded like at the time, and people were always comparing them to things like Radiohead and stuff like that. And I always saw Muse as more of a Queen style, big sort of space rock prog type band than an indie Britpop thing, which they seem to get sort of lumped in with at one point. But they're just one of those bands that have seemed to change every single album as well, and they got a completely different sound every time.
Have you followed along? Are you still a Muse fan, would you say?
Yeah. The only, to be honest, the only album I wasn't keen on is the last one. That was the only album that wasn't. I found with some of them you have to give them a few listens before I get it, and that's the only one that I never really got into. There's a few songs on it, but no, for the most part, yeah, I've been a huge fan of them from the beginning.
If you did bring Origin of Symmetry, would you not have to skip Plug-in Baby though? Considering how overplayed that was. But overplayed.
It's overplayed for a reason though, isn't it? It's a great. I remember hearing that for the first time, and just, I mean, it's Bach basically. They've nicked a classical piece and put it through a fuzz pedal. But no, it's a timeless album for me.
That's completely fair. And I imagine if I asked you all this exact same question, the music
Different
one
answer,
specifically,
yeah.
tomorrow, you'd all have a completely different album.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. Guys, right. So coming to the end now. And of course, as of May 28th, time recording, a few days ago, you released your double A side. Show must go on, if you dare. So let's start really, and anyone can take this, whoever feels most confident about talking about it. So when you decided, well, I guess, how did you decide you were going to redo If You Dare as an acoustic track?
Joe, you're probably the best one to talk about this because it's very much your baby, isn't it? This song.
I don't actually know how the conversation went to release it as an acoustic. I don't remember that. I remember we.
Yeah, I think it was always in some ways going to be an acoustic. I think it was always meant to start as an acoustic,
right?
And it sort of didn't go that way, did it? Really?
No.
Or I think when Shemek and stuff, when Slick brought it with us, there was always a mention, but bringing an acoustic on stage was not in the wheelhouse at the time.
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
I think it was I think it was always meant to be that different song, but I think that we, like you say, we kind of included all the drums and that nice heavy bit in the original. And then
We'll have to ask you then, considering obviously you're so familiar with these songs, your own music, which do you find you prefer now? Do you prefer the acoustic version, or are you still leaning towards the original on 7?
Well, we had a chat about this at the last rehearsal, and we said what we're going to do is we're going to merge the two.
Okay.
The acoustic's in a different key. We changed the key because we thought it just sat better vocally and with the context of the song. But then we said, wouldn't it be great to merge them a little bit? So I think that's probably something we'll play with.
The lower key really works, I think, especially with the acoustic, just because we don't have that kind of heavier bass underneath. So whereas we were able to, in the original key, it kind of worked because there was the thicker bottom, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah.
But with the acoustic version, it's quite sparse in places, and so because the vocals are so exposed, just dropping it down that little bit, and it gives it that just that
grounds
little
it a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it gives it just that little bit of a slightly more melancholy feel to it as well, I think, which
working on the track, when it came to putting it together as it is now, did it kind of refresh the 7 for you? Because obviously for us, the 7 is X amount of years old. For you, obviously considering how much you worked on it previously and recording and producing and all that up to the release, it's a lot longer. So I'm not going to suggest that you're sick of hearing the 7, because obviously you haven't been able to play songs for quite a while now, but redoing this song, so to speak, did you find it refreshed it?
Stuart, are you sick of If You Dare?
Yes.
That's the truth right there.
No, I think certainly from you get a different look at it when you send a recorded track to someone else to mix, but when you're the one that has to do the mixing and you have to listen to it a million times, I'm going to give it a few weeks before I listen to it again.
Amazing. I love the honesty.
No, it was I'm joking. It was great. I love doing it. It was fun for me from a personal side. It's obviously the first thing I've recorded with the guys as well. That and the Queen track. So for me, it was quite fun. It was a bit of an interesting experiment to see if I could actually record acoustic guitars in a bedroom overlooking a very, very busy road. So that was a little bit of a, I was interested to see how that was going to come out. But no, overall, I really enjoyed it. It was a fun one to work on, and it was a long time coming. Things got delayed a bit for a while, so it was nice to get it all sorted and done and get it out.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fact that it's out now, available to listen, buy, and so on and so forth, guys, I've got to ask though, what the reaction to it, both the build up, the lead, the pre-orders and all that stuff, and now having released, is it something that's taken you by surprise? Are you satisfied? Are you happy to hear that people are enjoying the song? That one specifically as well. We'll get to the Queen one in a minute.
To sort of tie the last question and this one together, something that I think is quite nice about this is that I think, as you guys mentioned in your video review, it's track 9 on the album, and so I think it's an absolutely beautiful song, and I do get like that little bit of choked up when I hear it, and you know, just absolutely jam-packed full of meaning. But I think because it's quite late on the CD and because it's very different to everything else, it does kind of get lost a bit. So I think it's been really nice to be able to actually kind of take this song and go, actually, look, this is a really good song, let's just shine a massive light on it. And the reaction has been so overwhelmingly positive, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's you know, I've got loads of friends and family who know I've been in the band for so long, and you know, they you know, not many of my family are metal fans, but they you know, support and everything, but this one has caused, you know, they've noticed this song more than any of those, and say, is this a new one? I say, no, it was on the album. They're like, really? Probably didn't get to it. Yeah, okay. What you say, Mel, is absolutely valid. But yeah, they said, oh, your new song. I was like, it's not new, but thank you.
Similarly for me, I've got parents who, you know, don't appreciate my taste in music and stuff, and whenever they hear, you know, something else is coming out, something else is being recorded, it's almost like oh god, what now? But it was a sort of surprise, like, oh, you do sometimes play that acoustic guitar that we bought you 20 years ago.
Amazing. And of course, you know, we've already mentioned you made the incredibly daunting decision to cover Queen, because Queen covers seem to go one or two ways: badly and all right for the most part, because everyone who tries to do Queen tries to copy what is ultimately a legendary vocalist or guitar player or bass player and so on. You guys chose The Show Must Go On, which is definitely not from Highlander. I do apologize for us getting stuck on Highlander for like 2 minutes straight, but it is an incredible version of The Show Must Go On. Why that one from the Queen catalogue?
I think we just said it was similar to If You Dare. It was fitting in terms of the subject matter with how things have been for everybody. You know, live music being put on standstill from the beginning of last year nearly, and still not really back up and running. But everyone being at that point where we're wanting to get back up and running, and there's nearly like a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's nearly like, you know, Tim touched on a little bit about us rehearsing last week for the first time, and you know, there was the fear first of all that I couldn't remember, you know, how do I turn this amplifier on? Where does this plug into? Like, I've not stood up with a guitar for over a year. What do I do? Do I still look cool? But then we, you know, once we start playing and getting into it, and you know, it just gives you that little bit more excitement to get it on. And I think the song really ties in with that. It's just that, you know, it's easy to sort of give up and think, oh, it's never coming back. It's, you know, feels ongoing and never ending. But I think you sort of have to remind yourself that at some point, hopefully soon, things will go back to normal and we need to carry on.
I think it's really important as well, just a bit of a moment to remember, of course, all of the engineers and technicians and stage managers and lighting engineers and all of the people, not just the performers, but all of the amazing people who work behind the scenes in the wonderful world of music and theater, and how they've been absolutely just decimated over the last year. And so it's a little bit of a ray of hope, not just of course for us who I would quite like to go and see Six eventually. It's been rescheduled 3 times, and but you know, so it's not just about, you know, I would very much like to go to Woodstock and have a pint in a field with my friends, but those people as well who their life is wrapped up in the arts.
Happening, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's the perfect way to end that little chat there as well. You're absolutely right. And I'm sure you're the same as me. It's just praying and hoping to God that our venues, grassroots venues, workers and all of that will get through this and be able to continue as it was, because without that, bands like yourselves and stuff like that, you know, you will suffer as well if venues close, and then we fans, we suffer. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's very depressing. I just wanted to add as well, of course, for those who do not know, the release also comes with a third track. It is, of course, Violet Hours off the album, but live at Bloodstock 2018, where you guys rocked the tent all those years ago.
Ouch. I'm sure it was just a year ago. That's how time works now, right?
It was that long ago that I was actually in the crowd at that gig watching.
Amazing. It's a great live version, because it's a live version and you can hear a crowd, and that is the best live versions possible. Guys, before you go then, future stuff, really more than anything else. Of course, you've been on hold, and obviously Tim went in depth for a bit of that. I just want to see if there's anything you can add towards it. Not necessarily whether or not you've got shows booked or shows planned, because we all know that is an if and what, and we shall see. But of course, you've had to put your own fest on hold several times already, and it's kind of like anything you want to share about that, or going forward, or work on the second album and so on.
Announcements about our festival will be forthcoming in the next couple of months. It's not happening this year, unfortunately. We've got 2 shows booked this year. We're playing on the 2nd of October. We're playing at Record Junkie in Sheffield, and that is for Mogstock, which is in aid of Rain Rescue, which is an animal charity that is Sheffield based. And then on the 11th of December, Blaze Bailey has kindly invited us to play at his big Christmas bash, and that is at KK Steel Mill. So KK Downing's venue, which is what they call. I'm a little bit starstruck. And we're playing with the amazing Absolva and Vice on that as well. So that's going to be an absolutely fantastic night, isn't it? Does somebody else want to talk about album 2 stuff? Because I talked a lot.
We love listening to your calm voice, Mel. Very therapeutic.
It's the accent.
I'm taking you to a desert island and you can just read books to me. But Andy's books about survival is what we're going to take. No, I think it's we're just knuckling down and writing new stuff. We've got a few things ticking along. But yeah, I mean, we can't really put any life into them until we get back to regular rehearsals and get a drummer in place and kind of
that was a great thing about seeing everyone though last week, because I think in a way, you know, we've written bits and we've sent stuff backwards and forwards to each other the last year, but getting back in a room with everyone, I think it sort of lights a bit of a fire under your backside and sort of reignites a little bit of passion to you know, I think it's hard to find inspiration sometimes. I think everyone thought that for the last year, I did anyway, I thought for this year I'd get loads done. I thought I'd be so creative because I had the time to do it. And it turns out that, you know, without anything going on, you've got nothing to inspire you to do anything. So it was really hard, I found, to keep completely, you know, creative and inspirational the whole time, inspired. So seeing everyone last week, I think it definitely, you know, gives you that boost and ideas start flying around your head about what you want to do. So I think we should hopefully get some stuff together soon.
I think it sounds like it's safe to sort of say your trainer's in the station. We're just waiting on lots of things to happen, to be in place, and of course the country to help us out by opening up a bit there. And then the future's pretty bright for you guys at this stage.
Hope so.
We'll be ready. We will be ready.
That's all you can be. And I think on that front, that is the perfect way to wrap this up. Guys, thank you so much for doing this. We're off. Enjoy your Desert Island. Enjoy your horror movies on a Desert Island, Joel. And thank you all for taking the time to do this. It's been long.
Thanks,
Carl.
Thank you
so much. It was lovely to talk to you. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr. Go to Patreon and help us out over there. That's patreon.com/gbhbl, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?